I always have this experience of, maybe like a year ago, I know that I was feeling very nostalgic and I wasn't appreciating what was happening at the moment. And now I can only feel nostalgic for what I experienced a year ago, even though I know at the time I wasn't enjoying, like I can be very nostalgic for things that I didn't even like in the moment. It's a real problem for me.
Derek, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. So, what is experimental filmmaking to you?
Oh, I'm still figuring that out, I think. My background's in I come from like a theater background, from an experimental, like devised theater background. So I guess in a sense, filmmaking really is an experiment still. I mean, the piece that I know you saw as part of Brooklyn on like Brooklyn Film Festival
Mhm.
um was an attempt for me to take some of like the principles and some of the ideas that I've used in my theatrical work and bring those into film. So it was genuinely an experiment to say, can we can we work through rehearsals in this very open way, this way that like normally in the theater work that I do would only be um the beginning of the process. And then, of course, in theater, as opposed to film, you have to solidify everything. You have to be able to repeat it over and over again every night. But in film, if you capture it once, you have it forever. So I think we're taking the beginning of like the theater devising process and that openness and trying to like use that energetically on set. So that's I guess the experiment that I'm interested in right now. I question whether this is experiment, like technically it's experimental film, or whether it's something else. I think different people have different definitions, but I can just say that's the project I'm interested in. So we tried it with Rude, which you saw, and then I think I just shot something last month that we're maybe trying to refine the formula of how to bring like devised theater into a cinematic context.
So, do you do that like in the writing portion or you do that in post or both?
Um, Post is looking more traditional for me. It's really like, so for Rude, this is it's an 8 minute short film. We shot it in 2023. Mostly we shot it with collaborators and members of my theater company. I ran Ceaseless Fun. Um, there was no script. There was a premise, and I spoke to each of the performers. We had like I think 10 like, sort of principal performers, and then many other friends and extras and just like add-ons from there. But we spoke about the premise of the piece, which is basically there's a fight at a rave and people spill out into the alley. That's the premise. And we talked about the types of people you encounter there and the kinds of situations you see at like 3 in the morning at a space like that. So, everyone came to rehearsal with some character concepts in mind and some like ideas about what those situations are like. Um, but there was no script, and we just played out a lot of these situations, and then started slowly kind of structuring them over the course of like 5 days. We refined and refined and refined until we had like a very tight sort of choreographed arc. Which, if you've seen the film, we shot it all in one take, so it had to be choreographed. And yeah, so there really was no writing process in that way. There was a structure, and then I kind of let a lot of my collaborators fill in parts of that structure, and I kind of serve as the editor in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
But I did watch Rude and I thought it was so cool how it was shot in one take, but it didn't feel like it didn't feel like a choreographed dance. Like it really felt like if you're walking down the street or something and all these synchronicities fall into place. Was
Mhm.
that a lot since it wasn't re or it was rehearsed? Is it something that kind of you're directing them and then they're also improvising a little bit? Is it timed? Like,
Mhm.
how do you do something like that?
They had their beats that every actor had like a list of beats they had to hit. So I have to go have this conversation with this person, and I have to go stand in this spot, make a phone call, and then I have to go over here. They all knew exactly where they needed to be, but there was no scripted dialogue. So the way in which they go and accomplish, those beats is a little bit different every time. So that's where the improvisation comes in. Um, these two characters are always going to talk, and they know that they have to talk about, a certain topic, but exactly how it gets brought up or exactly what those lines are would change from take to take. And I like that. I think especially for a film, the kind of like authenticity of a performance where the actors are searching for the lines kind of fresh every time is something it's like very compelling to me.
Yeah.
So you can watch it forever.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was so cool. And it even brought in that theater element just because it was only one take. And in like theater, obviously, you just see it and then you keep going. Was that intentional for you to bring that to make it feel a little bit like theater in a way too?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, so we do, I did wind up slicing up the takes. I made it like we shot it in one take, but then I liked being able to pull from different takes and then also be able to like create this kind of like dysphoric feeling, like maybe the kind of feeling you would have at 3 in the morning at a party where like you blink and then like things are slightly rearranged, but in kind of like that
Yeah.
way. We're not like we didn't shoot coverage. We didn't like there's no real eye for continuity. There's like a real like we're trying to maybe create some dissonance between the way we're cutting here. So that's very cinematic. But I think what is theatrical about it for me is the perspective, the idea that we're not just like abiding by certain cinematic rules, but like really there's a fixed perspective. It's a single perspective as if you were watching it, you know, there. So I think you could interpret that theatrically, but you could also just think about it as like the camera's kind of subjective in the situation. The camera feels in the action in a way. So that's where I see the theatricality coming in the final product for sure.
Nice. Okay, good answer. Not that there was a wrong answer. We met about a month ago at the Brooklyn Film Festival and you had the cast and crew with you. Can you tell me about y'all's experience at the Brooklyn Film Festival doing the East Coast premiere of Rude?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we just had a fraction of our casting crew there. We had I think yeah, two of the actors. One of them also produced in the film, and then Meredith is a longtime collaborator of mine. She associate directed this, but we used to run a theater company together
Mhm.
in LA. Um, yeah, the experience was great. I mean, it was definitely one of the coolest blocks that Brood has screened in. I thought like I said earlier, I think everyone has a slightly different idea of what experimental film means, and of course, there's no right answer or no right way to approach it. But I do think what was programmed at Brooklyn was like definitely my flavor of like what I'm excited about. So I was really happy to be programmed with some of those other films. The crime film was I want to give a shout out there. That was a really incredible film. And the A is for Ant also. Those are two films that I really loved in the block we screened in. That I feel like I maybe had some shared DNA of like theatricality and still using human subjects, like using like actors, but like maybe changing the form around them rather than going towards something more abstract or something. So that was a really wonderful block. I mean, there was some other great programming at Brooklyn, and it's always just like nice to have an excuse to be in the city and to meet some new people. Met a lot of really really wonderful people, yourself included,
Thanks.
at Brooklyn. So yeah, it was a pleasure.
Nice. And so far, I've noticed you guys have had a really successful festival year so far. How has the like external validation of that catching up to your internal validation, what has that taught you so far?
Well, it was like I said, it's my first film I directed, so it was really like okay, I'm not crazy. Like this is like at least one other person out there is watching this and seeing something of merit. So that's like good to know that like I'm on track for making something other people can see and enjoy. That was because you just kind of feel like, especially coming into a medium with, I've been a working artist for 10 years or so, and I'm approaching a medium that I had very little experience in previously. Obviously, I've experienced working with actors and experience crafting narrative, but it's a new medium. So you do feel like, am I doing this in a way that is legible to anyone else? Okay, yeah, cool. That's nice.
Mm.
Um, but then I think more importantly for right now, it was a lot of like it gave me a lot of momentum going into the new film. So like I said, we shot something last month. I see it as like taking some of the lessons we learned from Rude and trying to like intensify our approach and like specify exactly how these sort of devised and improvisational elements come into the work. So it definitely gave me yeah, momentum heading into this new project. So uh and also the festival, I mean, I think we're looking like we might screen a few more places before the year is over, before the run's officially done. So,
That's amazing.
mostly I'm just happy to like show people the work. I'm always excited to like have new people see it, to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and congratulations on your directorial debut.
Thanks. Thank you
Yeah,
so
I was looking at your Instagram earlier and you saw something about like, or you said something about having imposter syndrome. So like,
much.
look at you go.
Oh no, not imposter. Like I am an imposter. That's what
Oh,
it's just true. It's just, but no, I think that I like that you mentioned that because I do think like uh I don't ever feel like I'm trying to like get past that. Like I'm very comfortable actually being like, no, it's okay. Like I never trained in the arts. I don't like come from family money. I don't like have a lot of the things that maybe typically can support a traditional career in the arts. And that's fine. I'll just, like keep like taking whatever I can get from this world, to make the things I want to make. And eventually maybe someone will cut me off. But right now, people just seem to keep giving me the time of day, which is nice. But
yeah.
you know,
Well,
it'll
I
end
think
someday.
we're definitely in an era where we're kind of overseeing the traditional. So
Uh-huh.
timing is just perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. I want to jump back into the past a little bit.
Mhm.
Back in 2022, you were set to open a show for a 6-week run, but you were only allowed the opportunity for one performance and you didn't have your full cast. Can you take me back to that day where you found out that information?
Yeah, sure. So 2020, it was March 12th, 2020, was the day we were supposed to open the show, which is burned into my mind. It's probably burned into a lot of people's mind because that was released in LA the day that like the like state of emergency was officially declared. So we had spent like Ceaseless Fun basically, my theater company, had had like a really tremendous year in 2018. We'd like produced 4 full shows. One of those shows was like very large scale for us. It was like an immersive theater show that took place in like a very large abandoned building, basically a 17,000 square foot abandoned building. And like we got a lot of write-ups and press about it. So 2018 was a big year. We wanted to capitalize on it. We got some like external funding. So a lot of our shows have been funded by like just ticket sales, basically. So we got some external funding. We wanted to do a big show. We wanted to follow up, I guess, that kind of successful year with something bigger. So we started working on this show that was called Everyone Agrees It's About to Explode. And the basic premise was that the characters were all like members of a sort of anarchist collective, and the audience were being cast as like new recruits. So you're being directly talked to as if you're like a new recruit in this like sort of anarchist collective, whatever. It's the show starts with you having to like break into the venue, like you meet the characters before the show. We send you like the GPS coordinates, and you just have to like navigate to those GPS coordinates and stand on the street, and then like a character comes and meets you, and like you literally break into the space together. It's like this kind of covert thing. Um, Obviously, it's a very political show. Obviously, there's a lot of like valences or like it didn't map 100% onto American politics because we don't really have that kind of left in the US, or I don't feel like we do.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we're building up toward the show. It takes place, we were the venue we were using was in the Brewery Arts Loft in Los Angeles. And um I mean, we knew that shows had been shutting down leading up to that. We had sunk so much money in. We were really, and like I don't know, it's hard to remember, but there was not like a clear roadmap at the time of like what do we do or what's actually spreading infection. Like at the time, I remember, everyone was talking about it was all surface contact. Everyone was worried about COVID and surface contact. So
Mhm.
just a confusing time. I like was talking to a bunch of other theater director friends and theater producer friends, like, are we shutting our shows down? What are you doing? What are you doing? And it came to a point where we knew we had to close it. I just remember I was working, um, I used to work at the Grammys and I was still working there. And I remember being at my job, like on the phone all day though, like kind of slipping out to like make phone calls because it was just like, okay, are we doing a show tonight? It's like we were sold out for that whole weekend. We had like all these tickets sold. And we're like, okay, is there a show happening tonight? I was on the phone with my producer, Meredith. I was on the phone with the space and like the space manager. Just all these phone calls back and forth. But like the like choreographer who owned the dance studio we were performing at ultimately was like, the show must go on. You have to do at least one show of this. He was like very insistent. And I'm like, that inspired me. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna do one show. We're doing the show tonight, and then we'll figure it out from there. So then my office got shut down. Like they're not shut down, but they sent us all home. They said, okay, take all your stuff with you. You're not coming back tomorrow. I think it was like a Friday, maybe, but yeah, you're not coming back. Um, so then the office shuts down. I don't know where to go. I have like everything in my backpack. I just like don't have time to even go home. So I like just meet my partner for a drink at a bar. We talk about it. We go and do the show, and I just remember what we were doing was like wiping down everything the audience would have to touch with um like antibacterial stuff. Like we were trying to like clean all the surfaces. Little did we know it's like
Airborne.
respiratory. We
Yeah.
like we just were preparing in the wrong way because we didn't know any better. Did the show in one crazy night, and my one of the other producers on the show, Nick, had like incredible foresight. We'd been planning to capture the show on film, but um we weren't going to do it that night, but he just brought his cameras. He's like, okay, we're doing it tonight. He handed me a camera. He had a camera, and he's like, let's just get whatever you can. Because with an immersive show like that, there's a million things happening at one time. You can't get everything. You have
Yeah.
to shoot for several nights to actually get all the coverage you'd want of the show. We just got in there and started filming with the audience, and it was kind of like a one crazy night experience. Yeah, one of our cast members was sick. Clearly, I think she had COVID. Now that we look back at it, so I had to get in there and like basically rewrite and re-choreograph parts of the show in the hours before the audience arrived. It was mayhem. But I am so glad that we got to do the show for a paying audience one time and like got to get that documentation of it because it really was like a sort of insane feat of a show. And I wish we got to share it with more people. But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, there's a long answer, but
No,
that's
it's so
crazy
good.
day. Crazy
I
show.
watched it. So I'm like putting the pieces together in my mind right now because I was like, there's a lot going on here. I was like, how did all of this get recorded? But it makes sense. There were multiple cameras.
Yeah, we had one like nice rig and we had me and a little like camcorder, basically, like a 4K camcorder. And yeah, I mean there's a bunch of stuff we missed. There's so much stuff we just didn't even get to document in the show. But that's how it goes. Live theater.
During the show, there was like a collective shift towards chaos. And then at the end of the documentary, you end off with like everything that's going on from the opening night to like George Floyd's murder and storming the Capitol and like even the Texas power grid shutting down. Was there like an internal panic that set in for you knowing that your art so closely reflected what was happening in the world around you?
Yeah. First off, I'm just like so flattered you watched this because it wasn't even something that we had talked about and like you really you pulled that up and that's cool. I'm glad you watched that. Yeah, I guess we felt because we kept talking about, in the early pandemic days, oh yeah, we'll bring this show back as soon as this is over, like a month or two, we're gonna bring this back. And then it just kept getting worse. Like things just kept getting worse and worse. And that was a real strong theme of the show is that we all like we're on the precipice of explosion was the
Mhm.
whole, everyone agrees we're about to explode. Something bad is about to happen and we all can feel it. That's what the show's about. And I do think in a certain way you're supposed to believe that the characters in the show are a little bit uh, you know, crazy or a little bit like not correct for having that belief in imminent, catastrophe. But then like the catastrophe actually came. And I don't know, I forget the word you used, whether I felt like anxiety about it or something. I didn't feel anxiety about it. I did feel like um sadness that the like that the terrible kinds of things that we were like I don't know, like
See,
predicting but not really
yeah.
predicting, are actually coming to fruition. But
Yeah.
also there's a certain optimism because I do feel like at that time, like with Black Lives Matter, it was like a time where we're like, oh, maybe maybe like this left that we think doesn't exist in the US, like this like, like actually like um proactive, like organized left. Maybe they do exist. Maybe it will come out of this. Maybe there is like real reform that can like come from this vast movement. So I were feeling like a little, there's optimism, there was sadness, and then I think just chaos. And the show is about that kind of chaos. So I think in the documentary, we really try to capture like what it would feel like to have made this kind of show and then to see these things play out in the world and like create a conversation and maybe like ground the show contextually in those things. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It threw me into a depression, just to be totally honest. That was it's a hard time, I think, for everybody.
Totally.
So yeah, yeah.
Nostalgia Hell, a two-channel video installation
Oh
about
yeah.
thought loops, cognitive dissonance, which you used the word dissonance earlier. So I think I
Yeah.
have another question after.
Okay.
And fantasizing the past had its premiere is not the right word.
I showed it in Chicago in February. Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, that was I just graduated from an MFA program. I was at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Technically,
congratulations.
oh, thank you. Technically in their performance department, although most of the work that I wound up making while I was there was like video installation work. So I shot Rude right before I started the program, and then while I was there, I was thinking about ways in which like the kinds of performance that I'm interested in can make their way onto camera, and then specifically onto like uh mapped space or into like live space. So like capturing something live, editing it and then repurposing it sort of in a live context in a gallery. That's a lot of what I was thinking about. Nostalgia Hell was sort of my culminating project, which I'm still really interested in showing it other places. Um it was up in the SAIC galleries,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's a new kind of work for me that like two channel, three channel, some of the pieces I've made, installation work. But yeah, it's taking similar to Rude, it's taking some of these like improvisational theater techniques, but on the total opposite end. So Rude's very pedestrian, very like language focused, very much about real people in the real world. Whereas like Nostalgia Hell, I think is taking a much more abstract approach. It's very movement focused, very like I work from viewpoints. It's this like sort of system of movement work, pioneered by like avant-garde, and Tina Landau. And it's I don't know. We're using a lot of our sort of physical training from viewpoints to get these kinds of images that then I could use in the installation to think about like memory and nostalgia.
And viewpoints, is this like a technique?
Kind of, it's like a framework. It's like they break all movement that can happen on stage down into like nine constituent parts. So there's like tempo, which how fast the body moves on stage, or spatial relationship is the distance between bodies on stage, or
Mm.
gesture is we call it like shape with beginning, middle, and end in viewpoints. So it just breaks all possible movement down into those elements, and then allows you to maybe explore them more specifically. It's really like the foundation for me of a lot of the theater work that I've done.
Hell is a kind of nostalgia. What does this mean to you?
Uh, what does it mean to me? Um, well, I guess for me, the piece, because you're quoting the piece, there's like these aphorisms that pop up on the screen. And that's the final one in the work. I guess I feel like I feel like very prone to nostalgia. I feel like very almost like at times trapped by it.
Mhm.
I feel like I romanticize the past to a degree that the present can never live up to it. And then I spend quite a lot of time thinking about the past and like endlessly comparing the present to the past. But then I always have this experience of, maybe like a year ago, I know that I was feeling very nostalgic and I wasn't appreciating what was happening at the moment. And now I can only feel nostalgic for what I experienced a year ago, even though I know at the time I wasn't enjoying, like I can be very nostalgic for things that I didn't even like in the moment.
Right.
It's a real problem for me. And it's something I'm trying to work through and maybe work through my art in some ways. But so yeah, I guess I was trying to capture that feeling by approaching it in a lot of different ways. That feeling of trying and failing to like reconstruct the past and being trapped in that loop over and over again.
Is there anything from this project that you will definitely be taking with you on your future work?
Hmm. Um, Maybe not definitely. Maybe nothing, actually. I do think well, a real staple of my like video and film work so far has been like a lot of fixed perspectives and a lot of like static cameras and like like eye level symmetrical composition kind of shots. That's not unique to Nostalgia Hell, but I do think that that sort of syntax is going to continue. Um, to my work, and of course, like working with ensembles is like really important to me. But nothing, maybe nothing that's unique to this project. I do think to me it felt like the end of a loop. It felt like the end of like a line of thinking that I was really happy to like put a period at the end. Like I said, I do still really want to show this work though. I'd love to find like another gallery space to put this work up in because I'm really, excuse me, I'm really proud of it. So,
Yeah. Well, let us know because I actually am really interested. I loved the photos and
mm,
there was something in the caption where you were saying fantasizing about the past is sort of like directing actors. Is it
yeah,
one of those situations where you create scenarios or you fix scenarios to something that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable at that time?
totally. Yeah, I think you're connecting with exactly what I'm feeling with this. Yeah, totally. It's like yeah, yeah, almost like yeah, you're replaying like a past event. Like, oh, I was at this party and like what happened there? And then it's almost like the people who were there, or maybe the ones who weren't there also, are sort of like, little dolls in your mind that you can move around and try to like
Mhm.
place in the right spot, but it's never quite right. That's the idea. And like, yeah, you can totally reconstruct, you know, the past to then like be a more favorable situation. You can remember it the way you want to remember it. I think the opposite happens to me though, where I remember it the way that I don't want to remember it, and then somehow it gets worse over time or something.
Oh, wow.
It gets weirder over time. Maybe that's a better word. But
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Right now, what is inspiring you?
Oh, um, what's inspiring me? Well, a couple things. The project I just worked on, is about performance art. It's about like I would say like Chicago performance art community very loosely, not like a specific spot or anything, but it's very inspired by like my experience being here. I've always feel like I've been on the fringe of performance art. I've always been around these sorts of spaces. I do think my theatrical work is very inspired by performance art, but I've never really called myself a performance artist. But
Mm.
I've been like very immersed in it, especially in the last 2 years. So I've been thinking a lot about like what that kind of work does that's so different than what theater does. I've been really like thinking about the different kinds of conversations that can come out of these different mediums. And, I'm never going to make solo gallery style performance work, but I was very inspired to incorporate it into my work and try to make a film that answers that question of like what's the unique value of this kind of work. So I'm feeling very inspired just by like um that community in Chicago, but also maybe I'll just say Chicago in general is really inspiring me right now. It's like, it's summertime right now. Um, I've like had the great privilege to like work with a lot of people I think are really talented around the city. And I guess I'm just feeling like very optimistic about what like a collaborative network can do. I think like it's really important to be inspired by the people around you, to be impressed by the people around you,
Mhm.
to have like a wide array of people you can like work with and come into conversation with. And I'm just really feeling that in this city right now. So maybe more than anything, yeah, I'm feeling inspired by like the community that I feel like is sort of burgeoning in this city in this moment.
Yeah. I feel something very similarly in New York, and it might be because like it was like 49 degrees up until like the beginning of June, maybe. Is that kind of how it is in Chicago, how it was in
A bit
Chicago?
similar this year, yeah. It was a slow start, but now it's been like 90 every day.
Yeah,
So
I know. And you guys get really like intense winters and intense summers. There's like
yeah,
two big extremes. I feel like that's
yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah.
Glad you're feeling it
Um,
today. Yeah, it's a good year for expansive community, maybe.
yeah. Yeah. What can people keep an eye out for from you this year?
Yeah. Probably we're gonna be making a few more stops with personally I find it rude to be boring. Definitely I can shout out Edmonton Underground Film Festival. We'll be playing there in October. Nothing else I can mention at the moment, but I feel like we'll have a few more things to say before the end of the year. And then I'll say early next year, keep it out for the second film. Tentatively, this might change, but tentatively titled Beauty is the Terror We Can Bear. So I'm
Ooh.
looking to finish that by the end of the year, start some festival applications, and yeah, watch out for it at a festival near you, hopefully.
Okay. Well, I will drop your website and your Instagram so people can
Yeah,
find you.
be awesome. Cool.
Derek, it was so great speaking with you.
Yeah, this was so much fun. This is a blast.
Yay.
Thanks for asking me to come in and chat with you.
Oh my God, it was my pleasure. And it was good to meet you in person too.
Yeah, totally, totally. You watched everything too. That's cool. I didn't know you'd be taking a look at the old work, so I
Yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
mean, your Instagram is so beautifully set up. I think you like sold me.
Cool, cool, cool. I'm glad. Glad,
Yeah,
you know, it's all marketing, right?
I know, and it's great. It's great. You guys take tips.